You're listening to Prosper in the Kingdom, the podcast where faith meets practical strategies to help you become healthy, wealthy, and wise. Join hosts John Cleaver and Wendy Lee as they share insights to equip you in your journey toward abundance, spiritually, financially, and beyond. Just a reminder, every situation is unique. The content of this podcast is for educational purposes only and should not be taken as specific financial or medical advice.
Welcome back, everybody, to another Prosper in the Kingdom. And this is the ever amazing Wendy Lee. I'm her co-host, hostess with the mostest. See, I don't know. It doesn't come off cool when I say it. I don't know what's up with that. But anyway, I'm John C. and Wendy Lee, and this is another episode of Prosper in the Kingdom. So welcome back, everybody. If you don't know what we're all about, our whole goal is to show you how to apply the 3M framework that we teach to make, manage, and multiply for a wealth journey for you and your family from a biblical perspective. So, Wendy, welcome back from an amazing 4th of July weekend. Did you keep all your fingers?
All of them. Didn't even set off a firework.
What? Nothing? Did you see any?
Nope.
Well, then you must have had a good time. Started early. Well, anyway, that's fun. Yeah, it was so flipping hot all over the United States. There were a lot of cool drone shows and stuff too. I saw on Instagram and social media after the fact. But but that's not what we're talking about today, guys. We're continuing our notes from the kitchen table. That whole format of we talk about most of our financial decisions with families are around the kitchen table. So we're bringing you kind of some of that thought and some of those conversations. And, the whole point of it is, again, just bring you information that you can actually apply in real life. Right. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that we talk about, I know, Wendy, you read a lot of books, right?
I do.
A lot of business books, self-help books, and you actually got me reading, and I read a lot of books too. And that's really kind of how I got into it. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. Not necessarily a specific book or reading a book, but the idea, the concept we want you guys to get is reading another book won't change your financial future. Okay. And the big takeaway from this conversation today is that information doesn't create transformation. Action does, right? Implementation. I mean, and that's kind of what I see kind of across the board. And I know we've talked about this as well, Wendy, looking at, how one book can change everything or not. Right.
Right. And,
my personal experience, and I've shared this, with everybody before. I read a book back in the day. I was in my 30s, right? Rich Dad, Poor Dad. I know a lot of people that listen have read that book. I think you've read it as well. Most entrepreneurs have. And I went into that book because my buddy was talking about real estate investing. He's like, "Oh, you got to read this book." And I did. I learned about it, got into real estate investing at the time, but that wasn't my biggest takeaway. The biggest takeaway from that book was about diversification, right? Diversifying my income specifically.
Yeah.
And what I realized, kind of at that point in my life, I was doing what everybody else was doing, right? I was living for today, saving a little bit of money. I was getting in my paycheck, my one paycheck, right? Single stream of income, paying all my bills, having a little bit of fun. And I'll save a little money in my 401k. And I just figured, okay, it's all going to work out, right? It works out for everybody doing this. And what I realized from reading that book was, man, I'm putting myself kind of in I'm going to use a fancy word, precarious position. That's my word of the day in regards to depending on that one paycheck. And so what happened, I started thinking about, what if my employer decides that they don't need me anymore? And I must have manifested that or something because it did. That exact thing happened, right? But I fell back into that cycle, and that's what a lot of us do. We hate a job, we'll leave it, and this is the one, and it's all of a sudden you realize that it's the same story, just a new chapter, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then that was really driven home by cash flow quadrant. So I don't know, the cash flow quadrant, we've talked about that. I know you teach on this, but kind of really looking at kind of multiplying your income streams, right? Kind of spreading that risk around and stuff like that. So
yeah, both great books. But like you said, it's that it's got to be that implementation. I've read a lot of books, and there's some key things I take away. But unless you put into practice what you learn and really, I mean, how many books have I read that I've totally forgotten? And I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but not, not applying it is, I mean, it's honestly like a waste, right? So you got to figure
Yeah.
out what you can take. Like one book that absolutely changed things for me, because I did what it said, is the greatest.
Amazing. It's amazing how that works. So
Yeah.
sorry, go ahead.
Greatest salesman in the world. It's literally sitting on my desk. I have this book. I read through. The way that the book instructs you to read it is there's a story and then there's scrolls.
Mm-hmm.
And you read one scroll a month, 3 times a day. So scroll 1, you read 3 times a day, and you read it in 3 different ways. One, like twice silently, and then one out loud.
Mm-hmm.
And anyway, and there's 10 scrolls, so you do it for 10 months. And the first time I went through this book, I actually did that. Now, did I hit 3 times a day, every day, 30 days, a month for 10 months? Yeah. No. But overall, I was pretty on it. Like I at least read it every day.
Yeah.
And most of the times, 3 times a day. And it started to sink in. Now, when I read the book, I almost have it memorized, like the scrolls. I read through them. But the thing that I did is I actually like absorbed. I loved that method of reading that because you actually absorb and the information becomes kind of a part of you,
Well, and that's, like I love Audible, right? And you can use Spotify. There's a lot of books on Spotify. I don't know if people know that or not, but it's one of those things that audiobooks are good, but you're kind of distracted and things like that. And even reading a book, especially, self-help books and things like that. And I'm not a reader, right? But I realize that leaders are readers, right? So it's important to that. But again, it's not just about reading the material. It's about internalizing it like you were doing. That's why they had you go through those exercises. But, kind of looking at books, I mean, has there ever been a situation where you've looked like one book about money changed your whole perspective on it? And that's a question to you, Wendy. I did just briefly share that.
Profit First. When it comes to money, I read Profit First right before I met you. Mm-hmm. And I think it prepared me for talking to you about my money. Profit First, because I'd been an entrepreneur for so long, and I'm like, why am I always broke? Why do I always feel broke? And what am I like? What is managing my money and my business well? Like, I don't know why. It's like hindsight. It seems silly that I couldn't understand what to do, but I have to remember that people don't know what to do because I was there.
Well, that's 100%. People don't know what to do. Yeah. And so it's like, where do you find the information? And then not just find it, but apply it. So keep going. I'm sorry.
So Profit First was like, hey, every dollar that comes into your business is not for you to use. Like you need to assign a purpose and create kind of marching orders for each dollar. and that's a lot of
that's exactly right. Yeah, that's exactly right. You're either spending your money or deploying your money. Poor people spend their money. Been there, done that, right? Wealthy people, rich people deploy their money. How can I take this $1 and turn it into 2? Mm-hmm. How can I take that $2 and turn it into 4? That kind of thing. And the challenge with today, I mean, we've got more information on everything at our fingertips than ever before. I watched a reel today. This morning, I was doing some quiet time and started going down the scroll hole, and it was about gratitude. And this guy was talking about, this is a little off topic, but I'll pull it back around. The fact that here we are in 2026, right? And if you think, just 75 years ago, which isn't a really long time, right? 75 years in the big scheme of things, right? 75 years ago, most people weren't able to take a hot shower. Think about that. Because hot water heaters and stuff like that wasn't really a thing for most people. And so just to have the gratitude on that little bit, but the gratitude of the information we have is enormous. It's almost like I always talk about YouTube University and things like that, but we live in a generation that is one of the most informed in history. but that's also a problem, right? We've got books, podcasts, YouTube, AI,
Mhm.
TikTok. We got all these courses, all these seminars, people pushing their products, AI pushing seminars that AI created, but they're using a fake person to, it's just a lot, right? So the information has never been easier to find, yet financial stress is still everywhere out there. So, you look at that, and I'm going to say it's not an information problem. Now, I do think it's a communication problem. I think a lot of people may have been burned. I know I've been on that situation where, okay, I'm going to try this. And you get burned another time, and it's like, okay, just forget it. And then you get jaded, right? But I think just generally speaking, you know, I I think people have an implementation problem.
Yeah. Yeah.
Would you agree on that?
Yeah. I mean, it's like you said, the information is everywhere. But it's two problems, I think: implementation, and also sorting through what's noise and what's accurate, what's true.
Hmm.
I think the so much information and so much conflicting information, we call it analysis paralysis, right? Like,
Yeah.
you just get stuck and you're like, I don't know what to do, where to
Yeah.
turn, who to
Yeah.
listen to. Do I listen to Dave Ramsey or Tony Robbins or
Mm.
my financial guy down the street, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and that's again where you've got to learn for yourself, right? I mean, and it's just not about reading the information, but okay, how am I going to apply this at my level,
Mhm.
right? You look at um, reading a book on push-ups. Well, that doesn't build muscle, right? You actually doing the push-up does. Okay.
Mhm.
Watching a cooking video does not make you a chef. You may know all the ingredients and stuff like that, but until you do it, you're really not learning, you're not applying it, right?
Right.
And it's the same thing with financial books, right? I've read a ton of financial books, but the reason I read them is because I was tired of being broke and tired of not knowing what's going on. And so I started getting my own financial house in order. And then I started saying, hey, look what I learned. You should learn this too. And
Mhm.
that's where the whole prospering the kingdom business came from, right? But again, it's that whole, and we've all heard it, right? Knowledge is power. No, knowledge is not power. Applied knowledge is power.
Yeah.
But just reading about something, doesn't really make it happen. But, you know, I guess, you've answered the question I was going to ask, what do you think if people are more comfortable collecting information than implementing it? It's because people feel like they're doing something when they're doing their research, right?
Yeah.
And don't get me wrong, to some level you are, but you're not really, that's the intention, right? Is okay, I've got a good intention about getting in shape, so I'm going to read this book on exercise.
Yeah.
But unless you get out of the chair and start doing it, and building finances, building wealth is the same thing. Getting out of debt, same thing, right? Getting your financial house in order, that kind of thing. And what I realize is, especially going back to the financial world, if you will, that nobody cares about your money more than you do.
Mhm.
That's the hard, cold reality of it, right? And not that you need to learn everything, not that you need to, read all the books I did and stuff like that, but are you being educated on the basics? And that's why I love what you and I have built with Prospering the Kingdom, is because we're educating people on the basic concepts of how do you grow money? What is taxation about? We go through the financial planning process, and it's not just, hey, this is what you need to do. It's no, here's what's going on in your life. This is why. How do you feel about that? Here are some solutions that meet your budget
Yeah.
that you can start taking actions on. But that I came up with that quite a while ago when I was on my own journey, because I would ask advice and stuff like that. And, I was under the same impression, because I had an advisor, I was under the same impression everybody else, right? That my guy was looking at my account every day, moving money like Wall Street.
Yeah.
And I just heard your little laugh. So yeah, it's like they're going in once a year. Yep, looks
Yeah.
good. Oh, you lost money. It's like, okay, just keep going. But,
Yeah.
you know, but what I'm not saying is, it doesn't mean that, your spouse doesn't care, your advisor doesn't care, and your pastor doesn't care. I guess what I'm trying to say is, God entrusted your family's financial stewardship to you, right? The person listening to this right now.
Oh.
And it's, learning about this stuff isn't about creating or becoming a financial expert, right? It's about creating that understanding. And that's why I love our model.
Yeah.
And once that light bulb goes off, people begin making intentional decisions about their money. And, we've seen it time and time again, right?
Yeah. And I think too, we're looking too much to what the world says about money
Yeah.
instead of looking at what God says about money.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
God's word is not actually confusing.
No, it's
Pretty
the life's
straightforward.
instruction manual, man. Yeah.
Pretty
Yeah.
straightforward with what our work ethic should be like,
Mm-hmm.
how we should save, how we should give. Like it's pretty clear in scripture. And I think that, back to that like information overload, it's like everybody just trusting someone else or a book or a podcast or whatever to tell them. And I would encourage people, get in the word, start reading a proverb a day, start seeing what God says about money, and then find people that know the word of God and what God says about money to help you on your journey. Because the bottom line, I have learned in life in many areas, all areas, I've had hard lessons in a lot of them, that when we try and do things our way instead of God's way, it might feel good or look good for a moment, but it's going to lead to disaster.
Yeah.
Right? God gives us those instructions on purpose.
Well, and that's where I think, taking it back to the Bible, right? Because, I think a lot of people, what they do is they compare themselves to their neighbors, the Joneses, so to speak, right? And, when you're living in a secular world, right? And we've talked about this, be in the world, but not of the world, right? And so when you start comparing yourselves to the of the world others, right? Then all of a sudden, I think it starts veering you off course. And, really what we're talking about is stewardship as a responsibility. And I think it is, it's not something where we're trying to condemn anybody or anything like that, but it's like, how should I look at my money? And I've been diving into Psalms recently. And, I've not read the book of Psalms from, cover to cover. But I've started diving into it. I'm like, okay, this is really good. There's a lot. And I know Proverbs is because I've been there before, but it's amazing. Well, I mean, the Bible talks about money more than it does love, right? So the info is in the life instruction book. You just got to learn it. But again, that's just another book, right? So it's not about reading it and go, oh, okay, well, that's some good advice. I'll take it under advisement and see what happens. But the key to success is very simple: learn, apply, repeat. Learn, apply, repeat. I mean, that's the simple, practical framework that you can start using immediately. Learn one good habit. Save first. Pay yourself first. Dave Ramsey talks about that one. That's one of the things that he and I see eye to eye on. I love that one. But most people think that, here's what it looks like. I'm going to learn, and then I'm going to learn some more. And then, I should probably read another book and then listen to another podcast. So I'm getting all of this information overload, but yet I haven't applied to anything to actual doing it. There's no application there, right? Whereas successful people, learn, apply, adjust, and then repeat, right? That's the key. You start, and then, okay, if I need to tweak it or adjust, I do it, but I've already started. Yeah. Rather than try to become the expert before you take your first step.
Yeah. 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 I mean, taking action and like you said, it can be simple. I mean, I have a client I'm meeting with this week that it's like, okay, it looks kind of a mess right now. So what are the simple actions? We're not going to get to the end goal right now. We're not going to, you need to be saving this much. You need to be paying this much towards debt. You need to be doing this for your emergency fund. Well, we can't do all that right now because the margin's not there. So what are the steps that we can take now to move us in the right direction as fast as possible, and get really diligent about that? And, learn, apply, adjust, repeat means you keep learning and you keep applying and adjusting, right? So as you haven't arrived when you implement one thing and you're like, oh, okay, cool, right? Like, got to keep going.
Yeah. Well, and tying that back to the 3M framework, right? That's where Wendy and I came up with this model, right? Make, manage, multiply, right? Learn, apply, adjust. And it's just taking those baby steps and getting going. Okay. And then as you a lot of people come to us and they'll talk about a trust. Oh, I need to put a legacy plan in place. And we're looking, so, well, let's build a legacy first before we put a legacy plan in place. Right. And, so it's that compound growth. We focus on, how do I do that? How do you build a legacy and protect it?
Mhm.
Right. But just making those small decisions repeated consistently over time. And again, congruently, not let's do one thing for 5 years and then we'll start the next step in 5 years later. And then 5 years after that, we'll start. No. And, but the reality is, and I'll say this, if you don't know where you're trying to get to in life, or whether it's
Mhm.
wealth or you're just focused on retirement at this point, maybe you're in your 40s, maybe even 50s, right? You cannot just hope that it's going to happen for you. Hope is not a plan, right?
Yeah.
You've got to actually sit down, and that example you gave of the client, is great, because a lot of people, I was just thinking about what you were talking about, the lady, we couldn't do anything immediately. A lot of people would just, sweep that right back under the rug and put the rug back down and walk away and pretend everything's going to work out. Right. Whereas you're still in the storm, so to speak.
Mhm.
So we're here. I don't like it. Let's figure out how to get out. And that's where that actual planning process comes in. So let me ask you a question and then we'll kind of start wrapping it up. But what's one financial principle you think almost everyone already knows, but struggles to put into practice? I know I've got one, but
I
what do
mean,
you think?
I would
One
assume
financial
ours is
principle.
the same
Well, I
because
don't know.
everyone knows it and they don't do it, is pay yourself first, right?
Yeah.
Save before you spend. And
See, mine, that's not mine. That's not mine.
okay. Okay, what's your
So mine is the spending plan, right? That budget.
yeah.
And most people, myself included, it's a hard discipline to attain, but
Mm.
if you're not telling your money what to do, it's going to run away from you, right? I said it earlier. Poor people spend their money. They get a
Mhm.
paycheck, they spend it. Wealthy people, they get their revenue stream, right? I don't even want to call it a paycheck, but a revenue stream, and they redeploy it to go make more.
Mhm.
And, everybody knows they need to do it, but so many people are, number one, I think they're just intimidated by it, which it can be. I've been there, right?
Mhm.
And the other thing is, I don't really know what to do or how to do it, or they maybe need some accountability, right? And that's the big challenge. But I guess we're talking notes from the kitchen table, right? So I'm gonna ask this for the listeners, right? I'm gonna leave you with this. What's one financial principle you've already learned but still haven't put into practice?
No.
I would encourage you to write that down before we wrap up this episode. And I'd love to see it in the chat. If you want to put it in the chat, if you're willing to share that with us, I would love that. But again, what's one financial principle you've already learned, but still haven't put it into practice? So, again, just kind of to wrap up, I'm going to put out a challenge here this week. I don't want anybody to read a financial book. Don't buy another course. Don't consume, more YouTube videos or whatever, this, that, or the other. I want you to figure out that one thing that you have already learned, whether it's pay yourself first, or, I need to be tithing, or I need to be, whatever the case may be, right? Implement the one thing you already know this week.
No.
Okay. Maybe it's increasing your retirement contribution by 1%, right? Maybe, you don't have your emergency fund yet. So let's start doing that. Schedule a financial review. If you don't have anybody to talk to, we'd love to help you out. Mention the show. It's a completely free financial plan. Do something with it or not, that's on you. Even build a simple spending plan. We talked about that. That's my kind of thing that I think people know they need to do, but have never done it. Take a look at your insurance. Do you have enough? You're building a kingdom. What are you doing to protect it? What are you doing to protect your family? Right? What would happen if you're the breadwinner? What would happen if all of a sudden you weren't there tomorrow to your family?
Mm.
And what would happen to them? How would they make it? Could they make it? And, another one might be start tracking what you're spending. If you don't want to do a full spending plan, just track those loose dollars going to McDonald's or wherever, right? And the reason is these small momentums, guys, these small actions, they build bigger momentums. It's like a ripple in the water, right? You throw a stone in a pebble, in the water, and all of a sudden you see the ripples just going out and out and out.
Yeah.
And that momentum you create starts to build confidence. Granted, it's a little bit at a time, but you're taking action, and that's powerful.
Yeah.
Right. And that confidence, you taking action, adjusting as you go, right? You don't set it, forget it, adjusting as you go, that starts changing families. And so, closing thoughts, information fills notebook, implementation, the action, that's what changes family trees, and it can change yours. Again, one book read my life, right? I shared that, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and that led to the next book, Cash Flow Quadrant. But it wasn't about because I read it, because I know a lot of people have, right? But what I did, I got sick and tired of being sick and tired, and I finally did something with what it taught me.
Yeah.
And maybe this is the week you stop collecting information and start building your futures. So, again, if we can help you out, love to talk to you, get that plan together. Go to safemoneyroadmap.com. We'll put the link in the show notes, but safemoneyroadmap.com. Also, Wendy and I have started a Prosper in the Kingdom community on Facebook. If you're on Facebook, we'd love to have you join us. We put additional articles and things like that in there just to help people out. We have special events that we host as well. And those are free to our community to attend. I think we've got one on estate planning this month. So join that face group, and I'll put the link in the show notes as well. And make sure you're following us on social media. If you're on Instagram, Facebook or whatever, find us and, click that follow and subscribe. That's the thing too. You're on podcast, give us that 5-star review. That's going to help us with the algorithms, which means you're going to help other Christian families out there get their financial house in order, right? Just by sharing it, because it pushes us up in the search. Same thing on YouTube. So give us a like, give us a subscribe. It's so easy for you to do, and it really, really helps us out as we teach people how to prosper in the kingdom. So I talked a lot, Wendy. I'm going to pass it to you to kind of close us out.
I would just say, get your financial plan if you don't have one. Let's help you. If you don't know what your next step is, let's help you figure out what that is. So
love it, love it, love it. All right, everybody. Well, have a great week, and hopefully you had an amazing 4th of July. Fortunately, the USA is no longer in the World Cup, but I'm so happy that so many people got to see what an awesome and amazing country we have. And it's been wonderful to see all the, Europeans and South Americans and stuff just talk about how great America is, because it truly, truly is the land of opportunity. So bye, everybody. God bless. And we'll see you in another week on Prosper in the Kingdom. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for tuning in to Prosper in the Kingdom. If this episode added value to your day, be sure to like and subscribe. And don't forget to share it with someone who could use the encouragement. For more resources, head to prosperinthekingdom.com. Let's continue building lives of purpose and abundance, one step at a time.